Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we'll be finishing Bricky's every single Warhammer 40k Faction Explained Part 1. Now, last time around we got to the Grey Knights, we got to those Custodians who I definitely didn't get tempted to go on eBay and then snipe an entire army that was being sold for way cheaper than it was worth, and maybe picked up a few other models and entirely started a Grey Knight faction that's still in the mail, and I might have done that completely impulsively, and I don't regret anything because it looks freaking cool and I get to paint it! That didn't happen. I would have been tempted to buy a Calidus Assassin off this, but no one can ever seem to find it, and I have all the others, so I can't be tempted to buy something I already have. That's not making it better. My wallet aside, you guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. Let's get started.
If we're talking about blanks, let's talk assassins.
Yeah. Still don't have the Calidus. Got the rest. Done. Got the Calidus.
It's been a long video.
What was...
It's been a long soon. But if we're
What
talking
the
about
hell is
blanks, let's talk assassins.
My precious power ring gone forever? I thought that was the Wicked Witch of the West melting, but that's a completely different voice. I have no idea what that source material is. It actually bugs me quite a bit. I have no idea what that voice is from.
It's been a long video. We're about to round it out. We got this and one more human thing, and then we're done. The
Human
assassins, though, the Officio Assassinorum.
Weird that we only have the 4 versions. The others are way
These
more.
people are deadly. Yeah, they're called assassins. They should be, but
Kind of self-evident, yeah.
these people will mess you up. So these are from the Officio Assassinorum.
If there was more of them, they'd be on par with Space Marines.
They're handpicked by the Grand Master of the Officio Assassinorum from...
If you were allowed to take multiple Eversors as an actual unit rather than just a single one. That would be such a stupid rule. It would be completely overpowered, and the only way it ever works is if it was ever allowed. If someone doesn't know what an Eversor is, I'm sure Bricky will cover it because they're one of the 4 main assassins. He's probably not going to go beyond those. But at the same time, those would be so fun to have as a unit. Like, just drop in a unit of 5 Eversors and say, everything dies. Oh, I don't care if it dies immediately. It'll be fun.
Shit, what was it called? Scola Progenium.
Yep.
It's basically an orphan school. Your parents got murdered by demons or something. You get sent to this and you get trained to be whatever. Tempestus Drop Troop, an Inquisitor, maybe even. Maybe you get a blank gene and you get thrown into the Sisters of Silence.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you just disappear. When you are taken, however, you go...
Yeah. Okay, so he's sticking to the main ones. Wait, there's further lines. Is he actually going... Oh, it says classified on it? Oh, so he's bringing up the Venenum, and I can never remember the other one that's all about knowledge. Dude, even the fact that his sheet that he's using has that. Oh, this is... Yeah, 3 years ago, new models for that. I got excited. Oh, maybe they're not... No, 3 years ago, they were just putting it out there because it's fun.
Go to one of 4 temples because the Assassinorum works in the temple style of things. These temples are the Vindicare, Caluxus, Calidus, and Eversor temples.
And the further over you go to one side, the worse they get.
Far away. I've been sitting here for 3 weeks.
Yep. Hell, in the lore, they even have it going longer sometimes.
It's the main sniper-based temple. Gigantic sniper rifles for all these assassins.
And admittedly, they always have really cool lore. And sometimes the model's really good. They have been putting out specialty models for it that are just weird. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, wow, you are really going out of your way to make some of these models. If you know the model I'm talking about, you know it is really in-depth, really cool looking, and also gives it a bigger profile to be shot. And considering it's supposed to be all the way in the back and unshootable, that's weird. Unless they change the rules in 10th edition. I haven't got to that yet, which, I mean, I got the model. I might as well check it out.
Their whole point is to be able to be in a spot and sit there, eye and scope for weeks, waiting for their perfect target, taking people out from literal miles away after extremely long time period.
They're basically just
the
ultra
Vindicare
snipers.
Temple is about precise, perfect aim. There have been reports of Vindicares being able to single out particular body parts from over 2-3 miles away. Temples in the head, the jugular, for instance, and been sitting there after weeks. And when they're ready, take that shot. Time is done.
Admittedly, I haven't heard the story about them targeting body parts or jugulars, but with how over the top their lore is about how super precise they are, I could completely see them doing something along the lines of, yeah, we brought an assassin with a sniper rifle, and we used a gun to cut his throat. Why? Because it's cool. And admittedly, that's a better argument than it really should be, but I stand by it too.
Packs them up. The Calidus Temple, however,
These
is
ladies.
a lot more about shape-shifting and deviant art. It's mostly a...
Yeah, let's pretend I knew exactly what that was. I've been on the internet long enough. I shouldn't have been surprised by that. Also, admittedly, I kind of wish they had other variations of the look that did involve some shape-shifting involved, because they're always kind of a generic bodysuit. I would like something where they had an ogre arm with claws on it, because sure, why not? That would be awesome.
Female-based one, or at least
Admittedly,
it
you could
seems
do
to
it.
be, and this allows a lot of body augmentation for certain individuals to be able to kind of transmorph themselves and infiltrate areas that are problems. These assassins will end up taking missions that take them years.
Oh, I think I remember this story. Yeah, they were impersonating Ethereal in this bit of lore. Huh. Completely forgot about that. Also, I would love... Wait, no, they can transform. Theoretically, if I just got a bunch of random bits and bodies, can I just throw them together, put a blade on one arm and a glowing green gun on the other, and call it a Oh. Hey, I got an idea. I can't Kit Bash to save my life. This is never possible, damn it.
2-3 years to infiltrate a heretical group and slowly work their way up, just to get enough time to put a bullet into the main target's head, and then escape unharmed. Or become the main target and sabotage it from within. These are all
transformation, man.
Deception, mind tricks, polymorphing, and everything in between. And lots of drawings. Lots of drawings.
How much did he look up for this?
Just kind of disturbing one. The Eversor Temple is about when you don't want anything to come back alive, friend or foe. You want,
including the assassin you send out. They're literally time bombs, and if they come back alive, you're just wondering why. Also, they have the most metal lore of everything in 40k. And I do mean the most metal. When you think of anything in 40k, it's like grim and it's dark. This is the equivalent of all of the crazy shenanigans in Rogue Trader. For anyone who doesn't know what Rogue Trader is, I've referenced it before, but it's basically edition 1 of 40k that was a joke. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I mean, it was legitimately humor. I say sometimes that 40k is black humor because it's over the top. It's meant to be like, it's so horrible you have to laugh because it's ridiculous, even if the world sometimes looks like it. And then you just see it's insane. And here in Rogue Edition, wow. Rogue Trader, which was essentially episode 1, edition 1, it was expressly jokes. It wasn't kind of dark humor. It was just funny because it was so over the top and so ridiculous and drawn so stupid. These guys fit right in. I'm not even sure they're from Rogue Trader, although I wouldn't be surprised because they have the aesthetic down pat.
Want it all dead. An Eversor is psychogenically conditioned with just psychotherapy and psychological torture to only feel violence, hatred, and anger. It does the Clockwork Orange style of thing of just making you forced to watch never-ending pain and misery and psycho.
Admittedly, this is the equivalent of just saying we have made a person into a chihuahua. It's really the same effect.
So conditioning, I guess is the term. And then they pump you full of tons of psychedelic drugs.
They have weaponized Florida.
And then they
Florida
drop
chihuahuas.
you in an area where they
Yeah,
just
that's
want to
basically
make
it.
sure everything is dead. And then you defrost full of just all this insane, mind-boggling psychotherapy and psychedelic drugs, and you just go to town.
Also, the thing about Florida, that's not a joke on my part more than it usually is. If you look up some of the events of people on bath salts, which I found out was not just something you put in a bathtub, because I was really confused for a bit there when my family members were requesting bath salts for Christmas. And I had to wonder if I was needing to put an intervention in, but okay, apparently they're different. Just pointing it out there because I didn't know, so maybe someone else doesn't. I'm not incriminating myself aside. There are cases where people on bath salts would have essentially the exact same reaction that is happening here. Thing is, this came out before most people knew about what people on bath salts would do. So this is one of those really disturbing times where the over-the-top, dark, crazy, gritty stuff about 40k is kind of matching reality here. Yeah. We already knew drugs and people would do that, and using it in war was something that was done in World War II by people who YouTube doesn't like mentioning. So that's probably what they were joking with here. It's like, yeah, it's so over the top, but also it does work to specifically make someone an absolute murder machine. Again, one of the reasons I'm not going to Florida. The first one being I don't do heat.
Yeah, if you don't care if anyone comes back alive. You're like, all
And
right,
Eversur is a statement.
lost cause, send them in. Finally, there's the most bizarre temple, the Calyxus
These guys.
Temple. The Calyxus assassins are feared even among the other temples. So
Well, maybe not by the
that
Eversur.
blank gene, the people will go to the Calyxus Temple with this as well. And this is where they can harness that to be massively anti-psyker or even just anti-regular people. They're
Yeah.
seeing extreme fear and distrust among many, many people. They are described by the
I have no
Eldar
idea how they do
by
in the current
quote,
stuff.
as being pure evil. Imagine that uncomfortable feeling from that blank gene I mentioned.
There's a
and then imagine
Calyxus
them
with a
being
Tau?
taught and given equipment to amplify it by 100. If normally regular people feel uncomfortable, now they are basically akin to being a siren wailing directly in your ear.
To give an idea what he means, he's already covered blanks a bit, but essentially what they're looking at is less you feel uncomfortable because there's this blank, soulless person in front of you and it makes you feel bad. A Calyxus assassin is literally a soul-devouring monster. They are a black hole to which all souls are drawn in and annihilated. You are getting primal spiritual terror around them, and it's weaponized, I'm going to fuck up your soul. It's literally, you like having soul? No, you don't. Yeah, I could make a joke here about going from New Orleans to Texas, but I mean, I guess that's accurate. Yeah, I've never been to Texas. I have no idea about the reputation there.
And if you're a psyker, oh no, the sheer presence of a Calyxus assassin is enough for you to tear your skin off. You will rather gouge your
there's a face
eyes
on the
out
arm. I just
and
noticed that.
rip your nails off than even being near this person. The Calyxus assassin is when you want psychers
They need better
to
models, though. They
literally
don't have
lose
many.
their minds, and they will go on their knees and ask you to gun them down because it is a suitable choice over being anywhere near you. The motto of that temple is, that which is unknown and unseen commands the greatest fear. Now, for the tabletop, assassins aren't that special.
He's doing this in 8th edition. I would disagree. During 8th edition, they were still pretty special. Although not near the end of 8th edition, which is probably what he's referring to. Specifically, this lady, she was broken, I think, all the time, forever, always. And then they made her 2-point expensive. They made all of them 2-point expensive. But she was really damn good. And, I mean, if you know you're fighting psychers, this guy's amazing. Even during 8th edition, they weren't bad. I think in 9th edition, they fell off. And in 10th, I have no idea. I really wish you could bring more than a single one, or just the unit of 4. At least that was 8th edition. I have no idea what they did in 9th and the 10th. I haven't checked it out yet. If you could ever just bring an entire army of a single unit with Eversurs, just all the Eversurs right in someone's face. I don't care if it's not good. It's just one of those moments of, the fuck? That I would love to inspire on the tabletop.
You can call them in no matter what Imperium faction you are, and they do a lot of work for themselves, but at the same time, they're very specialized and require a lot of finesse.
When you're allowed to choose which one at the game, it's neat. When you're not, it's not so neat.
You want to cause some distortion and weird stuff, you take a Calidus. You want to just murder swaths of infantry and then blow up Eversor. You want to kill that one guy, Vindicare, and if you have a lot of Psychers, Calyxus. It's a nice little, like, jack of all trades if you have a specific thing you want to kill. And you get to choose which is really fun. But now, let's talk about the last human faction. We can round this video out.
What's the last one anyways?
Part 2, the Inquisition.
Oh!
We have
You know, I actually reference Inquisitors and how insane they are, and I actually forgot all about them because I'm not used to them ever being used. I don't know a single person who plays an Inquisitor. And I've been playing for enough years now where that's saying something, because there's a lot of old Inquisitors. There's a lot of new Inquisitors. They keep putting Inquisitors out that have really good sculpts. Hell, there's some of the old models in resin and metal that actually look good still. No one I know plays them, although for the metal ones, because no one can find them. Also, now I think about it, I don't actually know what the faction has, other than that they can technically be souped up with the Death Watch. Huh. Is it Death Watch? I think I forgot the name.
Oh boy.
What is that from? Monty
Where
Python
do I
or something?
even begin with the Inquisition?
They're weird.
Take every secret police you can think of.
Minus the actual
The
secret police that
KGB,
came out,
the
or the
Gestapo,
public.
The CIA, FBI, any of these kinds of people.
Oh yeah, because he can't actually put the images up, so he just put image not found because they're secretive. It took me a second to get the joke there. Oh, God, that's something.
And then mark it up by
Yeah.
about 10.
The art for some of them is
give them
weird.
the most power in the entire Imperium. No, you know what? How about this? This right here.
Oh, you're
It's
going to quote it
not
already?
just a quote.
Usually he saves that.
This is the Imperial motto. The motto of the Inquisition. I apologize for
I know what he's going to say, but the actual one should be, y'all going to do what I say? No? Dead. That's actually a very effective way to describe it, and it goes across all divisions within their internal faction disputes. It is literally, listen to me or die, and sometimes listen to me and die. You know, oftentimes they're not wrong. Sometimes they're very wrong.
my bad pronunciation. Innocentia nihil pro.
Oh, it's in Latin.
Innocence proves nothing. The most powerful organization in the Imperium.
I mean, when you got mind controllers and demon possession, that really is accurate.
Their number one motto is innocence proves nothing. The Inquisition goes around like the secret police or like detectives to find issues in the Imperium. And they have different ordos depending on which one we're talking about. The Ordo Hereticus, the Ordo Xenos.
Whoa. I think I've seen his art. That's Quotiez. I have no idea who she is, and that's a lot more color than I'm used to seeing. Oh, that's a purity skill. I thought it was bandage for a second.
The Ordo Malleus, for instance, and a whole bunch of other ones. Hereticus is obvious. They deal with
Heretics.
Xenos tries to find alien threats. And
oh, I get it. They're looking like a farce here for the Eldar. That's why they have that set up. It looks like something an Eldar would wear.
Malleus is demons.
And it looks like someone is a custody because they're the ones who are best at fighting demons, even though they're really not.
They all have different specializations.
Ah, yeah. This guy. Which is weird because I know his name, but I completely forgot what it is for a second there. But I do know they're thinking about making a TV show about him. I think it's about him because as far as I know, it's heavily hinted it's going to be about him. Produced by Henry Cavill, oddly enough, and through Amazon, which did actually go through. But I don't know for certain because the details have been kind of... I have no idea what the hell's going on.
In what they're
might be him, might be someone else.
This Inquisitor.
Still wish it was Commissar Kane.
Each of them, as an Inquisitor, has their own free reign.
What the hell is
as
this?
They wish. They may have a ship and a crew, and they go out to find.
It's probably one of the games I
and
haven't played.
Interrogate people a lot. They are above the law in every department.
Really, Bricky? You had the chance. You had the chance to look at someone and go, oh, I'm the law. And admittedly, it would be completely accurate here. I mean, it's not the right time to use it, but you had an example of it. And if you ever did a new one, considering there is a faction of essentially just Judge Dredd knockoffs, like not a small bit knockoff, but oh my God, you could tell it's an exact reference to it, which admittedly the Thunder Warriors were initially a previous thing before the Astartes. And then you have the Arbites, who are just that. They are Judge Dredd. There is nothing else to it. That is exactly what they are. And he's not going to make that reference because the faction, which isn't really a faction, it's just something you can soup in, came out within the last year. Damn it, he couldn't do it. Damn it, Bricky, how come you couldn't invent time travel to make a joke? Unforgivable.
Over Space Marines. Now, the Space Marines might
debatable.
argue against them and stuff, and there might be a lot of blowback, but technically they are above them.
One thing interesting about the Imperium, he's very correct in how he just said that. Technically, they are above them. It's kind of like how you can say, okay, you work for me, do my dishes. No. And if saying no is a thing that you're willing to risk, you can say no. But also, if your boss is a vindictive asshole who will then shoot you in the face, you might want to say yes, even though you really shouldn't. It's that level of, I have the power to say this. Should I is sometimes in question. Now, in normal life, that's because it's wrong and also probably going to backfire on you because there's going to be laws against it that could be used against you. But in 40k, since they are the law, it's yes, you could do it, but also those Space Marines will remember, and they sometimes talk. And when word gets around that you are the kind of person you don't want to deal with, there's a funny thing where somehow Space Marines just didn't get the call. They didn't get the message. They just happened to warp jump out right before you arrived. It's the craziest thing. Passive aggressive is actually the way to fight back in this case, and that is actual canon to 40k, because you can just be a bitch to someone. Unless you're a space corgi, a space wolf, And then you're fighting back by saying, fuck you, we will fight you, because that actually happened as a plot point, and pissed off the Inquisition. And then I don't ever think it ever really resolved. It kind of just soured the well, and you kind of ignored it because the plot didn't go anywhere. Because for the longest time before 8th, the plot was things happen and nothing actually mattered. Yeah, that changed, but for the longest time, I don't think I could have gotten into the current lore because it didn't matter. That changed, thankfully.
They are looking to investigate and figure out
Eisenhorn, that's his name.
And demonic
He put himself over the baby flyer. The dead
like
baby flyer.
Oh, or a new threat coming into an area. They're about learning that stuff
Don't know who that is.
Detective work. And memes aside, they're pretty good at it. The Inquisition having all of this power does make them a little bit power hungry and frantic sometimes. And yes, it is still a bad thing, but most...
I think I've seen her model in TTS. Also, just random aside, when he talks about how all that power makes them power hungry and mad, for example, one of the founders of the Inquisition is currently working with Abaddon the Spoiler, you know, the Chaos Marine, because she's made the decision with her infinite power that Abaddon's the right choice. It's hinted at. And I say hinted because even if it's stated, it's 40k. What they state could also be a lie. That she's doing it because killing the Emperor's physical body will revive him. And admittedly, based on the lore that's come out, she might actually be completely right. But also, I think she's kind of lost the plot here because she's working for Abaddon. I thought that was a random bit of bullshit at first. Then I looked it up, and it's actually out there. You can source it. There are books where you can see exactly on this source with this page at this line where that exact reference came in, because that is apparently a thing you could do now when you wiki check this. It makes it a lot easier to tell what's bullshit or not. But not a lot, because you sometimes just don't have enough reference to get that far. In this case, yeah, no, that's a thing.
Most of them are pretty good at
Inquisitors,
their job,
man.
and they spend a lot of time being very diligent to make sure that all of these leads
Until
they follow
they're
are
not.
proper and correct. They're basically space detectives with just enormous power and sometimes a bit of a power complex. And we haven't even talked about Exterminatus yet. Exterminatus.
Oh, he's bringing this in?
Exterminatus is deeming a planet unfit to be saved. I deem that this planet is demon infested, and taking it back will cost too many resources and is not worth it.
I'd like to point out, Bricky is probably, he might mention this, I don't know, when it comes to anyone new to 40k, whether they say it or not, does vary. The joke for 40k is Exterminatus, planets blowing up everywhere. It doesn't matter because there's so goddamn many. And admittedly, there are so goddamn many. It actually is insane. But the joke is that you could just destroy a planet because, I don't like you, Exterminatus! And it's just power mad, destroy planets everywhere. That isn't the case, with one exception. Where most Inquisitors will go in, they'll actively try not to destroy the planet. They'll try to keep the resources because it keeps helping the Imperium. So they'll do a lot to get there. And that would include just boxing it off, saying, hey, don't go here, and saving it for a later date. That is actually a thing that happens pretty freaking often. They might just let the planet go bad because they can't save it, or it's not worth the option to save it. And the easiest thing to do is to just say, don't go here, leave a buoy, shoot anyone who tries to go to it. That is a thing that happens when it's bad, but it's not going to spread, such as a planet has been corrupted, but the corruption is more just by assholes who've destroyed themselves. So Krieg, although that wasn't actually a case of it being condemned by the Inquisition, that was just ignored by the Imperium, which, I mean, yeah, details. The exception being one specific Inquisitor who looked at the Tyranids and went, the only way to fight fire with fire is a firewall. So you're not going to eat the planets, I destroy them. And for a while, the lore showed that he was helping, and then the new lore, no, it literally did nothing. They're extragalactic. They have the galaxy encircled. The Tyranids are crazy. In lore only.
I have now committed Exterminatus on this planet.
There's animations of this, by the way. It's awesome.
The death warrant of an entire Imperium planet, as it is unfit to take and better to be destroyed than allow the enemy to.
And for Demon Worlds, that is actually true. It's safer not to be alive.
This can mean cracking the planet's core and breaking it apart. Doesn't matter. Render this planet inhospitable to all life.
And then there's virus bombs.
The innocence proves nothing people are the only people who can choose this planet must die in its entirety.
Is he playing what I think he's playing?
who can choose this planet must die.
I know that song. It's a famous classical work, and I cannot place it off the top of my head. But I recognize it, and it's the most ironic song I've ever heard, because I only ever hear it when there's something horrible happening.
In its entirety. Yeah,
Yep.
You're playing the villain. Now it is memed a lot.
Admit it. Oh, he's actually mirroring up the meme status. And again, I keep bringing this up every time he says it. You're not playing the villain. I'm going to heavily disagree with him here. You're playing morally gray characters. I think initially, yeah, you were the villains, but the story has heavily changed from when that was the case. Essentially, as soon as they introduced the Primarchs and gave relatable characters, that stopped being the case. Early on, Rogue Trader, when it was out and out comedy, when it was out and out over the top evil for the sake of being shock factor, what are we getting into here? Yeah, no, you were the villain. But that hasn't really been true for a long time. There are villains within every faction, but there's a lot of them who aren't evil. They're just making the choices that seem right based on their judgment. Which is a big difference, because there are villains here who are very much doing the decisions they know is going to fuck over the most people because it fucks over the most people. And that is incredibly a big change here. And I will continue to disagree with him on this. You're not playing the villain. You're playing a faction in a dark world where things are fucked up and there's not good options. But there are good people, and there are factions who are better than others. There's no solid good, and there are solid bad. And that's the reason I keep saying there's no only evil, because there is a very set evil, and then there's everyone else. Not everyone at the same level. There's definite evil compared to everything else. It's not black and white morality. It's black and then everything else morality. And Vulcan, when you're not an Eldar, he's completely awesome, regardless, unless you're an Eldar, in which case, don't be in the same room with him and be an Eldar at the same time, or the same planet, or the same segmentum, or just don't. It's safer that way.
Lot, but most Inquisitors are very rare to do Exterminatus.
Most.
Exterminatus is a very crazy thing. There's only so many worlds that you don't want to destroy all of them.
Admittedly, the more you look into the actual numbers of galaxies or planets in the galaxy and how long they have bullshit technology that might be able to force things in the past more than the current spectrum, the number of planets isn't actually that big a deal. For example, if a single book contained at least one dead planet every book, there aren't enough books out right now in 40k, at least, to make a noticeable dent in the number of planets that are established within the galaxy. If you go actual galaxy numbers. Now, if you go internal, this is a lot because it's a lot. It's fantasy logic. It doesn't really matter.
Now, naturally, with the memes aside, there are some people who are a little bit rough on this one.
He actually brought up Cryptman. When I mentioned the guy who fought fire with fire. Yeah, Cryptman, who was kicked out of the Inquisition for killing too many planets. He managed to freak out the people who said innocence is not defense or not proof or whatever. He pissed and scared those people into taking action. And he's not a traitor. That's the crazy part. He thought he was doing what was right, and he made a decision, and it slowed down a battle's worth of Tyranids, what they thought was the war worth of Tyranids. And that is not me mistakenly saying the wrong thing. That is an accurate statement of exactly how little it did at the end. But no one knew that, mostly because, admittedly, I don't think the people at GW knew that when they wrote him. So it went from, it was necessary but horrible, to, it was horrible, and we're going to leave it there.
But
he had the right idea,
just
don't like bad execution.
A ton, but it is an option they have, and it's a crazy option when you think about it.
I get definitely not gay for Celestine. For anyone who doesn't realize it, in 8th edition, it started with Greyfax hunting Saint Celestine, and they were heavily shipped together because it was a cat and mouse game until they found Gilliman, and Gilliman got Igraine, and Igraine became something the GM writers, Games Workshop writers, decided they really liked the ship of her and Gilliman. And it probably would have gone somewhere if the models for the Eldar didn't kind of bomb. Yeah, they just kept making referential old models that didn't look good. And they just made more of them in a box, which was nice. And if you played it already, that's great, but you already had them. And it wasn't anything very new, except for a few characters. And it's a great starting box if you can find it. And you won't because no one bought it. So there's just not many.
Secret Police Inquisition are unfortunately not represented on the tabletop very much. You generally kind of put one in your army if you feel like it. You have a couple special options there.
I think they have gone back and forth with this one. I know in at least part of 8th. They had and then lost, and then I think had again, and I think they might have had a 9th. I haven't checked 10th, but this is a weird faction where every now and again they can be played as their own faction, but then they stop because it's not good. They don't function well as their own faction. They could be souped up, though, and they're really good for just giving you something really weird to pull in because you can. They're very casual friendly.
There and some side content, but they're not really fleshed out very well.
His character's probably going to sell like hotcakes when the show does come out for him.
Put in there, and they really need a lot more effort put into them, and they're not quite where I want them to be.
They're
Overall,
more
the
collectibles
Inquisition
than
makes
anything.
for a lot of the best storytelling as well, because it's a little bit hard to talk about a big story of a whole bunch of Space Marines killing something, right? It's just a big battle story. It's not as interesting.
Yeah.
Having that
some people like it.
intrigue and that moral dilemma that an Inquisitor has makes for a lot better media. And
I would say I like what he's talking about, but from an English major's perspective, someone who actually has a master's in this, I would say he's on the right topic, but it's not so much that it's just a battle story, but the thought process of a Space Marine is very much honor, duty. I got my arm cut off. Well, that's unpleasant. Now I only have one arm to cut you with. Ha ha ha. For some of them, that actually is a legitimate statement to Space Wolf. And you could get into that kind of mentality of it doesn't quite seem human. It's superhuman. Inquisitors, despite all the power tripping, despite all the advantage of the tech and the fact that they are massively intelligent, they are human in their perspectives. They could be warped and disturbed as fuck, but there's no, oh, fuck, my arm is gone, cool, type moment. Because that is well beyond what they normally do. So you get a human perspective you can attach to with human concerns. Now, they might be warped, they might be twisted, they might be grandiose, but they will at least come from the same referential point of a standard human, even if they got upgrades or tech, like the eye. So it's a lot more relatable because you don't have to wrap your head around a different thought perspective to start with. So you have that initial area to latch onto. Now, if you're a big enough fan and you like all that crazy superhuman stuff, yeah, you can get into it. But at least for the more entry level, which is the people who go to Bricky initially, having someone you could get that bit of understanding of their mentality without being told is a huge help, because the less work your audience has to do to get into a story, the less disbelief they have to suspend, the easier it is to pull them into the rest of the narrative. It just makes it easier. It's also why you could get away with almost no character detail about something in modern day, because people understand little bits of references here and there because it's part of the local dialect. It's just how you talk about something. But if you write something in the past, you need to explain everything as if the reader does not know. So you have to add more detail. The same is true here. You don't have to go into why someone thinks the way they do. You don't have to show their thought process. You can understand a lot more because they can be shown doing something. And as long as you know what the factors leading to it are, or it can be hinted at it or shown it, you don't need all of the crazy thought process because it is just easier for someone to immediately grasp onto that. But that's more of a writing conceit and not so much on the models itself as the actual writers themselves, which admittedly are very competent. I do advise any of the stories. And weird enough, the people who are the most impactful and the most relatable were completely non-human. I still need to read the Divine book. That's on me. 2 Necrons had basically Bill and Ted's Epic Adventure, or Excellent Adventure. Considering how many family members I have who actually love that movie, I will hope they never see this because they will give me shit for it.
And honestly, the more
Awesome
people
book.
do it,
Need
I
to read.
think it's better, because then it adds a little more humanity to the Warhammer horrible, horrible grim darkness.
Sometimes.
And wow, we just finished the humans, all right? Come back for part 2 when we talk about Chaos and Xenos.
Oh, he's going right into those two?
We got to talk about the 4 Chaos gods and all the...
You're trying to do Xenos
Chaos
on top of that?
Legions and the Tau and the Necrons and the Orcs and oh boy.
3 years ago. He might need to update that because a lot of shit has actually happened, which didn't prior to him making this. Oh, man.
We got a lot. I'll see you in part 2.
It's hard to wrap my head around the fact that all of that he just covered so much of the lore was just the human faction. Admittedly, humans in 40k are the biggest faction. They have the most pull. It's the one most people go to. And it's the one that has the most model souls. So they have the most lore, the most everything. But then there's so many other factions that have great lore. And if it's an introduction, I can see why he's not going into the Xenos specifically. It's probably just going to be the Eldar, the Tau. He might cover the Necrons if he's lucky. But that could be its own video right there if he gets really deep into the lore on any of those. Well, maybe not the Tau. still being fleshed out so many decades later just because they're in a weird place. Yeah, but if he's tacking chaos on top of that, specifically not just the chaos armies, but the individual gods, and God help him if he gets to the new stuff, has to add that on for Vashtor and all the crazy stuff that's come out that's actually changed. And that's not even getting into conspiracy theories about how this interacts with Age of Sigmar, because the warp interacts and there's similar gods with similar actions, but they also disconnect at times. And then that's just high levels of bullshit and theory crafting that may or may not be true. And no one knows, because Games Workshop intentionally keeps it incredibly vague, because it leaves them room to maneuver later without having to retcon it, because it always was this way. We just didn't say anything. And admittedly, it's the right choice, considering no one is going to be writing for Games Workshop's entire story, because multiple decades. Yeah. Basically what I'm saying is I'm really looking forward to the next part. I want to see what Bricky will get into for the Necrons, what he mentions about Trazyn, because Trazyn's kind of awesome. I want to see how he handles the Tau, because there is opinions about them. No one has one that is bile. I just used Fabius bile as a subject and a verb at the same time. Huh. If you don't get that reference, we'll probably get to it in the next video, because Bile is a main character who will probably be mentioned, if only because he is so weird. And he was very prominent at the end of 8th edition. Really broken armies. Either way, though, I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to go check that out. And I'll see you guys in the next one when I do that, because that's going to be fun as hell, man. Oh, I'm glad I did this. This is fun. And thankfully, this video didn't inspire me to go out and buy a ton of models, because I already have all the assassins that I could actually find. I mean, I would buy Calidus, but you just never have it. And, yeah. More importantly, link below video. Hit it up. If you like this, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.